Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank International Living for inviting me to make this presentation about Learn How to Escape to France. My name is Adrian Leeds with the Adrian Leeds Group, and I'd just like to explain who we are. We are property consultants, and we work primarily for the buyer. I like to think of ourselves as French property the American way, by Americans, for North Americans, all over France. We are a licensed real estate agency, and our services include property consultation, property search, sales and listings. We can even do purchase or sales assistance. We do appraisals, we offer financing resources, and we provide renovation and decoration. So basically it is soup to nuts for everything related to real estate in France for the North American. The reason we exist at all in France is because there's no MLS, multiple listing service. That means, and I will explain this in more detail later, but that basically means that every agency has its own small pocket of properties and you can't go to one resource to find everything at one time. Plus, the process in France is different. The laws are different in France. Of course, the language is different. And the currency, you're dealing in euros, not dollars. The culture is different. Every single thing is different. Anything you imagined about real estate or know about real estate in the United States or Canada or elsewhere, you can throw it out the window because everything in France is different. And that's why we exist, in order to help people make this transition and find good properties and make good investments. Now, there are lots of benefits to living in France. And I warn you now, if you move to France, you will never go back. It's basically impossible to go in reverse. You've got beautiful architecture and landscape and beautiful style. You have culture, the culinary arts, the performing arts, the creative arts. You have a lot of diversity. There's ethnic diversity, there's cityscapes, landscapes. The country of France is about the size of Texas, yet it encompasses as much diversity as the entire United States. And let's not forget that there's the joie de vivre, the time to relax and reflect, a lifestyle that's really enjoyable. And on top of it all, you've got amazing security. You've got excellent and inexpensive health care. You've got employment and retirement benefits. So there's a very big safety net in France. And that's another huge benefit. Plus, you've got high quality education, which is free for both children and adults, and an amazing infrastructure with excellent transportation systems, sophisticated and inexpensive communication systems. The infrastructure is amazing. So these are just some of the benefits. There are even more. Yes, some taxes are higher, but lots of taxes are lower. For example, property taxes are quite a bit lower in France than they are in the United States. In fact, about 1/10. And overall, even though you're taxed higher, you still get much more for your money. There are fewer rich and fewer poor and a larger middle class, and that's because France offers such a big safety net. For your information, you might like to know that you are not taxed in France on your retirement income or your investments. So if you were to move to France with the money you've made in the past, you have no fear that that will be highly taxed. You also have the right to health care at no cost after living in France for 90 days. Once you're here with a visa, after 90 days, you can apply through Puma, P-U-M-A, and you can receive benefits up to 70% of your health costs, which is pretty amazing. The healthcare really is about 1/10 the cost of what it is in the U.S., and the quality of care is excellent. You probably already know that the WHO ranks France as #1 in best healthcare in the world. So this is something you need not worry about. Now, to have the right to live and work in France is not very complicated. You can, as an American citizen, you are permitted to stay 90 days within any 180-day period without a visa. For stays between 4 and 12 months, You can be issued a long-stay visa, which is equivalent to a residence permit, called a carte de séjour. And in order to do that, you just have to prove that you are self-supporting, that you earn minimum wage, or that you have minimum wage in your bank account, that you have accommodations in France, which we can help you with, and that you have medical coverage for the beginning of your stay. You must also formally agree not to engage in any professional activity during your stay in France if you apply for a visitor visa. However, this means that the French government does not want you to take a job away from a French national. You can continue to work for a U.S. company and be paid in the United States. I also want to make sure you understand that you should not confuse legal residency with tax residency. Where you live 183 days or more is where you consider home. And there is a tax treaty between France and the U.S., so you will not pay tax twice on the same income. To apply for a visa, just visit the link that I have at the bottom of this slide. That's the official site for France. Now, there's a lot of France to love, so it can be confusing as to where you think you might want to live in France. Paris is, of course, a very urban lifestyle, but it has a very high cost of living. If you choose to go to the south, Nice and the Riviera, Nice has also an urban lifestyle, but it also has a suburban lifestyle, and it has a moderate cost of living. Should you decide to go into the countryside, such as Provence or the other provinces, you're going to find a much more moderate cost of living and a combination of both rural and urban and suburban lifestyles. So it really depends on where you feel comfortable and what you want out of those places. But all of France is beautiful and wonderful to be in, and there isn't too much I don't recommend. From my perspective, I think it's a good idea to kind of check off what suits certain criteria. So first of all, I think that having a thriving American community is really important because it means you can make friends very, very quickly. There's a large American community in Paris. There's a large American community in Nice and the Riviera and in Provence. These are places where you can really meet a lot of people and make friends very quickly who speak your language, who understand you and your issues and problems, who can help you out. I think this is really very important. I also believe that having easy access to transportation is important. So for instance, if you're near an international airport, which would be Paris, Nice, and Marseille, then you have the ability to travel all over Europe and even back to the United States and other parts of the world very, very easily. If you've got a good train hub, a TGV hub, and local transportation, then maybe that means you would not need to have a car. And not needing a car is a big deal because getting a French driving license is not an easy task. Plus, it's really enjoyable when you don't have to deal with ownership and operating a car, maintaining a car, and paying for a car. You can save at least $10,000 a year just by no longer owning a car. Now, you should also consider the cost of living. Housing is the main cost that is higher in some places rather than others. And this is a decision whether you're going to rent or purchase, of course. Paris is the most expensive housing market in France. Nice is about half the cost of Paris, not for rentals, but for purchases. And then the rest of the country is less expensive than that. I also think it's important to have access to good health care and hospitals. So again, you might want to think about being in more urban areas where you have access to these facilities. If you're here to do some business and you want to seek out opportunities, that's another aspect that you will want to consider. And of course, language. If your language level is good in French, then maybe you don't need to be in a place where they speak a lot of English. But if your language level is low in French, then you might want to be somewhere where more people speak English and you won't have such a tough time. So the question is urban or rural, apartment, village house, or a house in the countryside. These are all questions we can help you answer. Renting versus buying is, of course, pretty simple. Renting allows you more flexibility and gives you expendable money in the short term. But you have to remember that you're always paying someone else's mortgage, and you can't really make a rental property your own. So while owning a home gives you the kind of security, it is considered a long-term investment. We believe that home ownership is a way of having a level of security and really, all in all, benefiting your lifestyle. But renting can be a very good alternative in the short term. Now, the current property market in France is pretty interesting because it's been resilient since 1998. You really can't go too wrong in France when you buy property here, especially when you buy good property. So even with COVID-19, even in the 2008 financial crisis, prices have really held all these years. As a matter of fact, house prices rose by 5% during the first year, in first quarter 2020, and continued to rise. So it's even now, even through COVID, we're seeing an increase in prices pretty much across the board. So this is not a place where you have to worry about it being a very big risk. Prices in the countryside have gone up considerably since COVID-19 because of the large movement from the city into the countryside, whereas the countryside was a little bit softer until that happened. The Paris property market is extremely strong, always has been, I believe always will be. Paris is pretty much a non-risk market. Prices right now are averaging well over 10,000 euros a square meter. And even in the most expensive district, which is the 6th, almost 15,000 euros a square meter is the average. These are prices we have never seen before, and we're probably never going to see them again. I will bet that we're going to continue to see a rise because this increase has not stopped since 1998. In fact, property has gone up 51% in 10 years and 23% in 5 years alone. Now, other cities in France are also growing, such as Lyon and Bordeaux, Toulouse and Lille. So these can also be wonderful places to invest if you want to be in these other cities. And as long as interest rates remain low, which right now they're under 2%, the number of transactions will continue to average. And they are predicting 1 million per year with prices not going down. Now, in order to find a property to purchase, basically anyone can purchase property in France. You do not need to be a resident. You do not need to have a visa in order to purchase a property in France. Anyone can do that. As I said before, there's no MLS. There's no multiple listing service. That means that every agent has access only to their own listings and does not expect to split commissions, which is about 5% included in the asking price. So therefore, the agents are pretty proprietary. They don't want to share their information. They don't want to share their clients or their listings with other agents. Now, their attitude toward commission sharing does differ in different regions of France. So in the south, for example, they will more openly share their commission, but in Paris, it's virtually never done. So you're kind of on your own, and the agents will say or do just about anything to make a sale. So it's pretty tough to trust an agent that actually works for the seller and not the buyer. That's the reason that our primary service is property finding, and we are working specifically for the buyer to protect the buyer from these kinds of situations. Now, we will only list the properties that we recommend a client buy. So we have very few listings on our website. And as a matter of fact, when we get a listing in and we promote it to our mailing list, we usually sell it within 24 hours because we've got a built-in market, and we know that the property is a good investment to make, and therefore our readers believe that it is too, and so we can sell it very quickly. The other agencies, of course, will not do that. They will list just about anything as long as, as long as they can get a listing. It means that they can possibly make a sale, but they don't care about what you're buying as long as they sell what's on their listings. Now, from a property finding perspective, we can find just about anything as long as it exists. So we can't invent it, but we can at least find it. Now, keeping in mind that Paris is the most expensive market in all of France, and Nice is about half the price of Paris, and then the rest of the country is even less expensive than that. So apartment prices are measured by square meter rates, whereas homes can command just about any price. And it's a little more difficult to actually compare the price of a home for that reason, whereas comparing apartment prices is really no problem at all. The bottom line question is, what is it worth to you? In order to find financing, we work with brokers who specialize in the North American buyer. And financing is possible to obtain, but it is a little bit difficult. If you are 60 years of age and older, it will be more difficult for you to find financing because there's a life insurance policy that's built in with the mortgage. And as you get older, the premiums become prohibitive. They want the loans to end by the age of 75. So they don't like to lend beyond the age of 60. They also prefer salaried individuals over self-employed. So if you're self-employed, you're going to have a harder time getting a mortgage than if you're salaried. They really look more at your salary and your income than in your assets and holdings. And the mortgage payment cannot exceed more than 1/3 of your disposable income. All that sounds really tough, but it's really worth it because interest rates are still under 2%. I call that free money. And if you can get a mortgage in France, it's really worth doing. We can also assist you in finding a way to get a line of credit on the U.S. side or on the Canadian side if that interests you, because we do believe that you should always use OPM, other people's money, to make a purchase such as this and to leverage your own holdings. Now, the purchase process takes quite a long time. It takes 4 to 6 months from the initial visit to signing of the deed. And this is under normal circumstances. There are complications that can extend that, but you should be prepared to take 4 to 6 months. Now, sellers tend to allow about 5% negotiation room on the price of a property, but the seller is morally obligated to accept asking price. So that means there are no bidding wars. And if a property is really hot and you don't want to lose it, then it doesn't make sense to offer less than asking price. You do that, it's yours. Once that happens, a lawyer called a notaire is notified and begins the process to organize all the necessary documentation. And there's a lot of documentation, so that takes about 1 month. You will then sign a pre-sale agreement, which is called a promesse or compromis de vente. And it is signed after all the due diligence is done. There's quite a lot of documentation that's provided that we go through with you to explain everything and to ensure that this is a really good property to buy. At that time, a 10% deposit is held in escrow by the notaire. Once the pre-sale agreement is signed, there is a 10-day cooling off period within which a full retraction is possible. So you can decide not to make this purchase and just retract 100%, and you have nothing to lose. From that point on, however, after those 10 days, you need to allow 2 to 3 months between the signing of the pre-sale agreement and the final deed, and that gives you time to allow for the finance process to take place. Now, we offer even more than that. We offer quite a lot to the community. We have 3 nouvelles lettres or newsletters that we post every week. So you can subscribe free of charge to those newsletters, and you can unsubscribe at any time, of course. We have also done almost 50 shows on House Hunters International, so you can see our TV shows on HGTV's House Hunters International. I hope you're a fan. We also run a coffee gathering on the second Tuesday of every month called Après-midi, and there's always a speaker. They're always fun. They're free. We have been doing them in Paris since 2003, but right now they're on Zoom, so anybody can participate from all across the world. And on top of that, you can attend our Living and Investing in France conferences. We have one coming up this fall in Nice with a tour to Provence. So on our website, there's information about that. But it all really starts with a personal or group consultation with me to discuss your project and how we can best assist you and to give you direction and guidance. And then, of course, you can always participate in webinars such as this one. And we do lots of these kinds of events. So you can check our website at adrianleeds.com for any upcoming events. We have helped hundreds of people make the move to France. You can do it. It really is easier than you think. And it all starts with a consultation to strategize how to do it most successfully. We believe in getting good advice. It's really worth paying professionals to put you on the right path. And what I'd like to say personally is don't let fear get in the way of your dreams, and take the word expectations out of your vocabulary and replace it with the word hopes, because if you do that, you will never be disappointed. If you love France and you think you might want to move to France, then by all means contact us and we can certainly help you. And again, my name is Adrian Leeds with the Adrian Leeds Group. I'd like to thank International Living for having the possibility of making this presentation. You can contact me at info@adrianleeds.com. Visit the website, learn more, and thank you. It's been a pleasure.